Welcome, everyone, to the joint Aspen City Council and Board of County Commissioners meeting. We have a little echo. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, got it. Thank you. And today is Monday, February 9th, although it feels a little more like April out there. We're hoping for some more snowpack recovery for all of us and for the water in the summer. We have a number of topics we'll be discussing. Many of these are staff-led updates so that the board and the county and the city both really understand what projects we're working on, how they might interface. It is not going to be in-depth Q&A, although if people have questions they would like answered on either of these issues, any of them going forward from the boards, we will take notes and have our appropriate staff kind of dig further into those. We're scheduled essentially to go for 2 hours till about 6 o'clock. So the first item for update is coming from the county. It's a county staff-led discussion on the airport update. We appreciate you being here and helping us keep abreast of all the current news.
Demand.
Could hear a pin drop.
Ryan Mahoney, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Give it up.
Yay! First presenter is always the hard spot. Go ahead.
And Diane Jackson is traveling, so she's not able to be with us today.
Okay, thank you for that.
Just take 1 second to
Yes.
say hi to everybody on the council.
Yeah.
I've seen you guys for a while. Hi, Bill. Hi, Sam. And Christine, how is everybody? I see you regularly.
Yeah. Just to kind of say this is our first joint meeting of 2026, so we haven't seen each other in a while, and it's nice to get caught up. Thank you, Francie, for that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Ryan Mahoney. I'm the Deputy County Manager, and I've been working on the airport project. And as we heard from Patty, Diane, who is my usual partner in crime with these presentations, is out on some much-needed leave with her daughter. So let's see. I'm actually jumping slides here. Don't know why it won't go back.
Scroll up, it should work.
Scroll up.
Oh, you're right. You can view full screen. Doesn't look like it.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. So as you can see here, usually Diane is here in the past few presentations. Bill Tomsich. So program timeline. We have had a few milestones met so far. So the common ground recommendations, as well as our airport layout plan, the environmental approval, which was a significant milestone for us, which also helped us with the ability to apply for some grants from the FAA that we are still awaiting feedback on. And then the ballot issue that will allow us to issue debt for the airport improvements. All of those are completed. FAA funding, we're kind of looking at funding in two different ways. One is for the land side, which would be the terminal and the parking and the ground transportation center. The other being the air side, which of course is the runway improvement itself. We have had good news, good feedback from the FAA with regard to the grant funding. So this year, we're expecting to get approximately $40 million for that grant funding, and then in the next 2 years, $80 million each year for those 2 years. And so that should get us to about 90 to 95% of coverage for that portion of the improvement. And we'll continue to look for grants along the way. The grant that we have into the FAA for the terminal side was part of the funding from the infrastructure bill that we're in the last year of that. So we've asked for $15 million for that. And then we continue on with our design phase, and I'll get into that a little bit more in just a moment, as well as the construction closure. But you can expect to hear from me probably over the next 4 years or so until we finish the project in 2029 is the plan. I keep doing that.
And just so I was clear, the grants that are coming are for finishing design, or they're for the actual runway construction?
It will be both. The one that's for the terminal is for construction, but the runway, any runway design we've done to date will not be covered under those grant dollars, but once
Runway
we're
construction.
awarded those, it can cover some design, but then mostly construction.
Mostly construction. Thank you.
And then this slide you may have seen before. This is just to ground us, but it gives you a sense of how we're looking at the improvements. Sort of dead center, you get the runway. There is the new terminal, which is in the yellow. But then one that we don't talk about all the time because it's not specifically our project is the FBO improvement. The fixed base operator does intend to build their new terminal building when we are closed for runway improvement. Whether their timing works to finish the entire thing, I'm going to guess probably not. They'll still have some improvement happening after we reopen, but nonetheless, there's going to be a lot of activity out there. And then that west side taxiway is a future improvement that won't be part of the scope of this current project. So one of the things we consistently get asked right now, which I still don't have a perfect answer for you today, but is the closure timeline. So we are still looking at approximately a nine-month closure, starting at the beginning of April 2027 and carrying us through, we're saying now, into December perhaps, but ideally the pavement really needs to be done November because paving season is short, as we all know. We are going through the delivery method for the project will be through a CMAR, or construction manager at risk. So the benefit there is we bring the contractor on early. We have gone through interviews and those are down to 3 at this point in time, and then we'll get a finalist here in the near future. That's for the runway. We'll go through that same process for the terminal building. The benefit of having this CMAR brought on is that they can help us with cost analysis as well as throughout the rest of this design process, helping us with constructability questions. The other thing, just to prepare everybody, in 2026, this summer, we anticipate doing some enabling work out at the airport. The airport will remain open for this enabling work, but it's shifting Owl Creek Road as well as the Owl Creek Trail. There will be traffic movement. It's not going to be completely closed, but it may be down to 1 lane at times this summer with flaggers or lights. And then on airport, it'll be likely some drainage work, maybe some early utility work, and some stockpiling and whatnot of materials. One of the things we are anticipating as well during construction is that we will need to likely run 2 shifts to put a batch plant on site so that they're not, kind of reduces traffic if they can do that. They're not running trucks all day long, so you're saving some time doing that. And then we're starting the permitting process now as far as locations and extents, but we know that that's going to be just something we have to consider in our timeline. Just to let everybody know where we are in the design phase, so I'm now kind of switching back to the terminal. We have just finished our programmatic phase, so this was really identifying sort of the basic needs and kind of moving those around like puzzle pieces to understand sort of the most efficient way to think about our future terminal and then also the ground transportation. So we're finished with that, and we're moving into schematic design. We're going to have more opportunity for the public to come out and see what some of these ideas look like. This is kind of the look and feel stage of the architectural process or design process. And then we're also continue to work with our task forces that then make recommendations to the AAB and then ultimately to the county commissioners for approval. Let's see here. So closure impacts, some of the things to expect, and we are still very much working and kind of getting feedback from community groups, some of the stakeholders, et cetera, just so that we can understand what issues they might be facing and how we might play a role in that or be a convener for different groups to be able to kind of work through some of the issues that come up. So as far as travel goes, we know people will be using alternative airports, including Eagle and Grand Junction and Denver. We are looking at, and if Bill was here, he'd be able to tell you how the airlines themselves will be communicating out to passengers. We are going to hit a timeline, likely sometime this summer, that if somebody wants to buy a ticket for a future visit, I believe it's the 11 months in advance is when the airlines set their ticket
Schedules
sales. So those schedules. So we're going to want to have a pretty darn good idea on the closures by this summer, so that that communication can start going out from the airline side. And alternatives, say you fly into Grand Junction, we are going to be looking at some ground transportation that are through a private provider that they may be able to come and do secure boarding or secure busing, if you will, from our airport into Denver. And then other groups now are starting to discuss different shuttles and those kind of things for their own organizations. Maybe we can expand that into something broader during closure.
So are you working with ACRA, Chamber of Commerce, on that? Because they're equally trying to accommodate the guest, and you hear these same concepts mentioned with them. And of course, Bill and Diane are there at those meetings. But getting more solid information to the business community has been just the one request we hear over and over. And we're hearing a lot's going on in the background, but there's nothing solid to announce yet.
And we're still very much in that listening phase right now. This week, there's different groups through ACRA that are sort of different focus areas, whether they're business or finance or, things along those lines. So I think the idea is to gather as much information at this stage so that we can understand what the concerns are. But I think it will take a village to be able to get us through this time, most certainly.
Greg?
Great, thank you, Rachel. And this is something Ryan knows. I asked this question before. It'd be good at this point to articulate what the county's obligations are regarding helping people get, to Denver or wherever they're going, what our responsibilities may be, and where they aren't, because we can't take over transportation. We're going to accommodate, but it'd just be nice to describe that a bit better if you're prepared to now.
Sure, I can do my best with the information I have today. I think what the county is embarking on here is building a terminal and a runway. So that's going to be our main focus. As far as standing up with county funds a new shuttle, I don't know, or some other alternative similar to a shuttle. I don't know that that's going to be in our purview to do that. Our airport funds really need to be put into that airport infrastructure. The one example I gave you on this secure busing from Aspen Airport into Denver, that would be, that's a private company called Landline that's interested in coming in and investing in that opportunity during the closure, and perhaps even having that service beyond the closure. So we are seeing some private interests step up. We're also seeing some of some of our stakeholders, I guess without specifically naming them, are looking at having their own shuttles so that they know if they are having events coming, they want to make sure that those folks that are signing up for those events have options to get from Eagle Airport to Aspen. So I think those things are very much in the works, and I think that our role can very much be as convener, making sure that we are communicating out and articulating the dates that we're going to be closed, how the airport may or may not be used while construction is happening, because obviously it's going to be an active construction site. If it can't be used, then what are alternative sites that we might be able to offer where some of these shuttles can come in and drop off or pick up? So does Buttermilk work? Does Brush Creek Park and Ride work? So I think all of those concepts are in play. And I would also say, as I mentioned, that the airlines are very much going to be interested in maintaining people's interest in this market once we reopen. So their ability to communicate out and, have options for folks that during this time, you're going to be rerouted to Eagle, and there are shuttle options there that are available. So
Thank you.
more to come. I wish I could tell you
Yeah, no,
exactly what all this looks like today, but
We know there's an uncertainty still, so thank you for that, and please continue.
yeah. So in the local economy here, I think the transportation strategies, I've just talked about that. And we do have some established programs. I think the point of this one is we may see some of our folks that rely on work at the airport to put food on the table. So are some of our human services programs able to support during times where they could be underemployed, and or just making sure that those voices are considered as we move forward with the project too. It is our goal to have some activity out at the airport. We have employees, the airlines, TSA. We anticipate that there will be some of those folks that remain employed during this closure. And then I think the communication piece is obviously extremely important. People want information that's as accurate and up to date as possible, so we're aiming to do that. And there's a lot of people. I find that sometimes there's inaccuracies to the information. So if we can kind of have a single source of truth where people really rely on a certain, landing page or what have you, we're really trying to create that at the airport, and I have some information on that in a later slide.
Yeah, and we'll probably have about 6 or 10 more minutes for this presentation. I will add that on local economy, I think it's really important that when we're really clear about the closure, it is happening, because a lot of hotels and places are thinking, well, it'd be the ideal time to remodel. They may be laying off staff as well for 4 months or 6 months while they're doing that. So it could be a bigger hit to the county human services than they're anticipating, helping people hook into their benefits.
Yeah. That's right. We have heard of a few remodels that might take place during the closure. Okay, moving on, I'm really close to the end here. So
That's no problem.
the open house, we are intending on having this sort of next stage of design introduced March 5th. That'll be down at the Hoffman Hotel, just outside of Basalt. As I think most of you are aware, we're kind of switching back and forth. We're having meetings up here in Aspen and then also in the Mid-Valley just to try to capture as many folks as we can. And that'll be from 4 to 7 on March 5th. And then lastly, here was the page that I really want to point people toward, which is on our airport website. It's the modernization page. We do have our normal newsletter, but then we also have this frequent flyer newsletter that just goes out more frequently. And we've had a number, I believe it's somewhere over 20,000 people have subscribed to our newsletter at this point. So people are definitely interested in paying attention.
Very good.
So that's all I have for you, Mayor.
Any other further questions or comments people have? Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. We greatly appreciate that, and we will all be staying in touch. I guess with the back and forth, we now are going to the Lumberyard update from the city side of things. And Chris Everson will be presenting.
Thanks, Jess. Thank you, Mayor Richards. City Council members, board members, my name is Chris Everson with the City of Aspen. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so update on the Lumberyard affordable housing development. This is some information from the new regional housing assessment just available recently. And the one thing I wanted to point out here is that this report, I think some of you have seen it.
We've all seen it, I think, been presented.
Okay.
The 1, 2, 3 report.
The one thing I wanted to point out is that the Lumberyard and other pipeline projects, they're counted as already existing in this report. And so, you know, the existing shortage of 1,400 units, the total net need of 2,538, the Lumberyard is not going to help make those better. So just wanted
So
to,
they're counting that as if it's done.
as if it's done, right? Okay. So moving on. So the Lumberyard will provide 277 affordable rental units of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments. Mostly 1 and 2-bedroom apartments, a smaller percentage of 3-bedroom apartments. It will be income categories 1 through 5, although the City Council did direct that they want the flexibility so that the income category 1 units, if category 1 people cannot be found, those are flexible so that category 2 people can reside in those units. There are more units in the category 2 and 3, which is from 50% up to 120% of area median income. So 70% of the units will serve categories 2 and 3, so a big number there. There'll be APSHA deed restrictions. There's no low-income housing tax credit conditions tied to the project. It'll be entirely through APSHA. We will be asking, like we have before, the APSHA board to sign on to a special limited partnership agreement, which will provide tax-exempt status to the operating entity. This is something, again, we've done for other affordable housing developments that are currently in operation today, and I'll show you the schedule in a little bit as to how we plan to engage with the APSHA board. So this is being implemented by the City of Aspen via a public-private partnership with a private developer, and I'll get to that on the next slide. And, you know, the private developer will also be the operator of the facilities, and they will be in charge of all of the tenant applications and the lotteries and all of the leasing. The City Council has also directed us to include a urban growth boundary priority, as well as an employer partnership program priority, wherein certain local area employers may have the opportunity to move their employees, some of their employees, to the front of the lottery, similar to other types of priorities that we see in the lotteries. So we're proceeding with those conditions. Oops.
And I would note that that portion of the program was limited to 20% of the units.
Correct. A total of 50 units out of the 277 units there, and actually not to exceed 25 units in any one building. So I mentioned the private developer, Gorman and Company. They are planning on implementing 277 units in 3 buildings. Each of the 3 buildings has around 100 units each, a little bit less, in 2 of the buildings. And they plan on implementing this through 2 separate financial closings. So it will be sort of 2 phases. It'll be one right after the next. The first closing coming up in 2026, and the next closing in 2027, with an estimated completion schedule staggering throughout 2028 and 2029. So each of the 3 buildings will have occupancy throughout 2028 and 2029. So not all at one time, it'll be sort of staggered. And the city's contribution to the deal with Gorman is estimated to be $250 million. We will have more information about the first closing coming up real soon. We have a work session scheduled for March 9th with Aspen City Council. I think you all saw some of the infrastructure improvements that are planned with the multimodal trail along the frontage, which currently goes across the driveway of the lumberyard, will be placed underground, similar to what you have at Harmony Road and at Truscott. There will also be a transit station for the lumberyard shuttle, which will be 2 buses operating on 30-minute intervals. And I know you probably want to talk about transportation. The City Council, of course, has the authority to modify the bus route. And, you know, with the facilities not being ready until 2028, there's still time to have whatever conversations or collaborations that you may need to have. So what I don't think you saw, and I'm going to beg your forgiveness about the next slide you're about to see, because all I had was an engineered line drawing, and I attempted to color it in myself. So this is the current conditions at the south entrance to the ABC, where you have this right in, right out condition. It's, of course, unsignalized. Here's where the trail sort of comes in, and there's a crosswalk, and then this sidewalk sort of ends, and then there's another crosswalk. And so, you know, we were asked to work with the have city engineering and county engineering to collaborate on, you know, what is this area going to look like when the lumberyard is here. This driveway over here is the driveway to the Comcast building, and it used to be the driveway to the mini storage facility. So once improved, it's going to look a little bit more like this, where this will be the frontage road that runs across to the lumberyard. There's parallel parking on both sides of that roadway. That's a 2-way street. There will be a raised intersection here with crosswalks in each direction. It's a 3-way stop. There's connection to the trail. And then the trail, without having anything to connect the trail to, we were asked to just sort of create a soft transition where trail users can either be on the sidewalk or off the sidewalk. And there's also sidewalk improvements on the opposite side of the street which do terminate. But this is the plan that is currently in for review, and that is the current plan. So probably not total perfection, but something that can be built upon.
So the intersection that's there now will essentially go away and will be replaced with the intersection that's the entrance to the lumberyard?
Yes, thank you. This right in, right out is now blocked off in this condition. This area over here is left unimproved because this is the piece of property that we've left open for potential early childhood education center in the future. Yeah, so this leg of the roadway will proceed over toward the lumberyard traffic signal, correct?
Thank you. Sam?
And Chris, just for, I know the answer, there's no opportunity to do an underpass from there over to the other side towards the airport in like this intersection area, as you look at design and we talk about these things.
There may be, unrelated to the lumberyard project perhaps, not something we planned.
Well, I know when we were talking about the lumberyard entitlements that you couldn't do a underpass because of the amount of space it would take up. I actually don't know if we really talked about this intersection and this area being able to go underneath the highway to the other side. And if you're still designing it, it'd be great to know that answer as to why or why not.
Yeah, we are trying to start construction in 2 months.
No, I understand.
Yeah. Now, part of the issue has been if we were working with the county and if the county was interested in revisiting the Highway 82 access plan at the Airport Business Center. And rather than have 3 traffic lights or 2 traffic lights, you could eliminate the existing one on Main Street and just have this traffic light here and have a new traffic light at the CMC, essentially, entrance. That was something that came before the BOCC before. I was there. We heard tremendous pushback from the gas station and Roxy's grocery store, the few things that this is our Main Street. It would still be something you could allow a right in and a right out, but just, separate the traffic lights further from the lumberyard and current ABC light by a significant amount and potentially reduce it to just maintaining those 2. But that is something that is the county's access control plan that is somewhat driving this. And then CDOT has also, we have talked about an underpass. They would have to, that's why our bus system would be circulating within there as opposed to trying to do a large underpass under the highway.
I'm sure you're aware that off to the left of this slide is the existing underpass.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're not going to bring cars under an underpass. I mean, to do something like that, it has to be the height to allow a 18-wheeler truck to be considered legitimate by CDOT for an overpass or an underpass.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about
No, he's
this.
talking about car underpasses, I think.
Yeah, I was talking about car. I know about the pedestrian one, and, it was the same vein of the email we got from Edward Olemans and just talking about the airport and the lumberyard at the same time. I just think it's worth bringing up, these value signaling that it'd be nice to have a car underpass there for the traffic concern and linking the 2 major projects that are both going to be under construction over the next few years.
So I'll revise what I said. Our transportation engineer did a very rough fit test, which I guess you were referring to, a roundabout and a grade separated interchange, and there is no room for it.
I'm sorry, did you just say there was no room for that? Is that what you said?
There's not enough space for either those 2 things, either a roundabout. The transportation engineers also said that they didn't think that there was any way a roundabout could solve any of the problems related to the traffic counts because of the existing backup on the highway.
Greg, you?
Well, it's just, clearly this is of huge concern, certainly to me, probably to my board and to your council as well. I'm concerned about, the disservice to the entire community, especially the commuting community going either direction. If we aren't doing the absolute best we can, our utmost to understand this and work together on a solution is optimal. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's been explored enough or perhaps too much at this point, and this is the best we can do. I wouldn't mind asking my board to consider bringing it back and taking one more pass at this with our staffs working together to come up with possible solutions that haven't been contemplated or have been discarded. And that's, I don't have anything else to add to that other than that I think it's a huge disservice to the community if we don't. Thanks.
I think some of the concerns, Greg, have been how much land it would take from the airport to do it on the airport side, as well as redesigning the lumberyard at this point in time. You know, I think that the scary part is that while an awful lot of the tenants and the future renters at the lumberyard will not be commuting from Down Valley in the future to their jobs, we also saw the housing shortfall that says there's going to be a lot more free market housing built, whether it's in Rifle or Glenwood or wherever, that sends new commuters up here as well. And if your staff is willing to take a look at the highway access control plan and how we might be able to do more there, I think we could take a serious look as well. But similar to the airport bond that has passed, we have passed our bond and are under contract to begin moving this forward.
Right, I know, it seems to be baked, it's a fait accompli, but it merits another look, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the other thing to really bear in mind is when we went to half-hour service at Burlingame for those commuters in that residence, it really took a lot more cars off the road. And there is a commitment for a better mass transit system. I'd like to see it supported with the county in such a way that supports all the airport business center businesses, because you look out there, there's no paid parking, and people are parked all along the sides of every road. It's a car magnet for the businesses there. And how to get those folks a little more on transit, or the tenants and the users of the AABC. Yeah, Bill?
Thanks to everyone for bringing this up, and I'm super supportive of it. I'm very much supportive of doing the best we can in terms of improving transit and connectivity and transportation alongside both of these projects. But what's unclear to me is what problem we're trying to solve for. There's, Sam brought up a vehicle underpass, which solves for potentially one specific or one set of problems. There's public transit elements to this. There's pedestrian elements to it. And if we're going to do it, I think it'd be worth spending a few minutes sort of talking here about what problems we're trying to solve for, and where we're trying to make improvement on. Again, I'm supportive of it. I just, I don't know what we're getting at.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and I do think like the obvious one to me, although I think there's a lot of nuance to this and there's other elements, is eliminating some of the traffic lights from Highway 82. That's the one thing that's obvious to me. But beyond that, I don't know what else we would improve on, but I know that there are things to improve on.
Well, I agree with you, and I think that we don't have, with the rest of this agenda, time to start debating what we should just have staff study or not study. We can have our manager teams get together and discuss this a little to see if there's any openings. I would be a little concerned about, this is a transit-oriented development. I'm not sure we want to make it easier to have a tunnel directly to get your car onto the road and encourage the driving from that site when you're going to be paying a couple $1 million a year for transit services to that site. But I'm happy to see Pete and Brian sit together and talk about it. I'm a little more concerned about where the construction workforce for both of these projects will be residing at the same time, and how people have thought about that. I got a random call 4 months ago by someone who couldn't talk for very long, Gigi Dennis, someone who used to be a state legislator, saying that she was working with one of the companies, and where did I think that the construction workforce for the airport could go? And I said, I don't know, but I think in the past they've kind of booked out all the hotels in the lower valley for the season. So I don't know if we're going to be hearing about man camp ideas or something from either of these two projects coming forward.
Okay, so Rachel, back to that, would it be okay if we ask each of our staffs to sort of get together and come up with some potential improvements worth studying and then bring those back to each of our boards for feedback independently if we don't have time to talk about that today?
Yeah, I think that was kind of what I was suggesting.
Great.
Francie?
Yeah, I just wanted to express my support for that as well. I've been talking about it for 9 months, the Transportation Coalition, with Rachel and Christine and Greg. And,
Yeah.
and I do think that we're at a nexus in our development in the Upper Valley. Right now, we have these 2 big projects coming at the same time. So this is 3 big. So this is our stepping off point for the future. And in terms of your question, I think the biggest thing that we want to solve, Bill, I'm sure this is true for you, is the congestion. And so if we're adding all those cars from the lumberyard, I hope they use transit, and we're adding more cars from the airport, which is only 2% of the traffic, but still, it's something. That's obviously going to make the problem worse. So, yeah, I think we're solving for congestion.
I concur.
John?
Yeah, I got to say, I'm a little bit conflicted because I agree with some points that Sam brought up and others. I was actually unaware that one of our intersections out near Lumberyard was going to be eliminated, and so that helps me move forward with this plan. But I think Michael Miracle is in the room here. I really think that the public deserves to see, or maybe deserve is the wrong word, but I think I would really like to see Edward Olemon's plan shared with the public so the public can weigh in on it and see all the really great ideas that he has put into it. I don't think all of them are going to work, but I think the vast majority of them could. And I think the time is now. I really agree with the fact that eliminating stoplights is one of the things that we can do to help increase our traffic flow, along with better ground transportation from the airport. And this is the perfect opportunity for us to be working on this. We should be looking at these 3 projects comprehensively, and what I'm conflicted about is I don't want to slow things up, though, right? And some of these plans are kind of baked in, but if there's a way we can do this and do it quickly, I think it would be worth our while. We want to do this right.
Patty has?
I have not had the opportunity to see Edward's proposal. My concern is it opens the door for us. Then we have to let every member of the public have that amount of time because he's not a consultant to the county. He is a member of the public, so we'd have to give the gondola hours of time and other members whose names I won't say
Oh,
here.
with all due respect, I think we have given gondolas a tremendous amount of time.
Well, but we have to give it, if we're doing public comment for more than 3 minutes, which this would be, we have to offer it out, or we will be discriminating against other members of the public who have.
Understood. Good
But
point.
that, I have been trying to see it for months, for a lot of reasons. It has never worked out that he had time or to actually show it to me. I know members of my board have seen it, and they're very impressed. That's one thing. As far as the man camps, the county's already working with contractors at risk, the contractor at risk, there's an acronym for it, to look at how we're going to house workers at the airport. We're way ahead of the curve on that. So that's already really in the works. And as far as signalization, what intersection are you talking about that's getting taken up?
Well, it's the right in, right out
it's still an
first entrance.
intersection.
No, it won't be. It was just the design showed, there will be a new intersection that's below it, that is the entrance to the lumberyard, and then a frontage road to the rest of the airport business center.
Right out where there currently exists?
Exactly.
So everybody's going to have to use the frontage road, the 2-lane frontage. That's going to be interesting.
That was designed in concert with the county engineers? Was that what, and CDOT? Was that what you had said, Chris?
So the intersection
saw it.
improvements that I'm showing here was designed together with the city and the county engineering offices. But long prior to that, of course, the 2012 CDOT Access Control Plan defined the frontage road and the location of the stoplight. So that was years ago.
Yeah, so that was approved by,
There's also a signal that was proposed as part of that at the RAFTA Maintenance and County Public Works. There's been a lot of.
but the plan that was approved, Patty, had this intersection and that
Rachel,
other
I'm
one.
not trying to argue with you.
No.
I'm just saying there's a lot that goes into this, and there's a lot, I have not seen the right in, right out in what county engineers have proposed. For some reason, does the rest of the board seen that? You know, I mean, there's a lot of things going on that we're not being privy to. And when we're the final decision makers at the end of the day, we need to know what's going on. So I'm just saying that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Well, we're going to see some county staff and city staff getting together, and Ryan, I'll let you have the next word on this before we the county master plan.
Just a quick point I wanted to make. You know, I'm hearing there be an interest for sort of what I'd call a more regional look in this area that might include, you know, Buttermilk, and it might include the Lumberyard, ABC, and the airport. We do have this pending grant, which is the build grant, that's for $2.5 million, and it's a planning grant, so that we can pan up to that 20,000-foot level and look at some solutions. Part of what the airport is doing in its design phase is making reservations, space reservations for what future modes might come. And I think this is a bit of an answer to all of your questions, and something I think we're going to talk about at the EOTC retreat. And that'll be helpful when Snowmass Village is also in the room, because that, if the airport is to be serve as some sort of hub that, you know, would go out to those two different communities, I think this grant will go a long way to further this conversation you all are asking for us to have
And Rachel,
tonight.
really quick.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with staff getting together to talk, but I don't think we've given them clear direction as what we want them to talk about. We've kind of left that door wide open, so go talk. So
Do
I
your
think we
board
need-
know what direction they'd like to give?
I would like to bring it back to the BOCC, and maybe the city council bring it back and come up with some points that they would like discussed by staff before we just throw staff to the wolves. Sorry, Fran.
Okay,
They're nice wolves.
nice, Wolf. Okay,
Lions.
very good. Is any other comments,
Lions,
questions I
is it?
didn't answer from this side? Then we will move on. We do have 4 other topics, and theoretically scheduled to end at about 6, so we're moving on to, Chris, did you have any more? I'm sorry, we got stuck right
I
in the
don't
middle
need
of
to.
yours.
I don't need to. This is the schedule we're working toward in terms of the upcoming closing.
Okay. Great, thank you. Well, we'll be glad to go further in depth for anyone who'd like to hear more about the lumberyard in the future.
Which is all of us.
Yeah. I think there's an awful lot of employees that are wondering when they can get off the road and get within 3 miles of their job, that's for sure. Here we go.
Hi.
Hi there. Let me pull this up. Hi there, Council, Commissioners. I'm Hannah Hunt-Wander, Senior Long Range Planner. One of the many staff working on this Vision 2050 project. Just to start, the Vision 2050 vision itself is what's listed on the slide, which is implementing bold climate action, balancing our economy, preserving rural and wild lands, and supporting an equitable and affordable community. So really kind of zooming out of the conversations we just had to think about this framework for policy and direction over our next 25 years. So from a process standpoint, so kind of what is Vision 2050? Really, this started back in 2019 when the county commissioners established the direction to form, well, first started with declaring a climate emergency, which was then the impetus for the Growth Committee, which was a 26-person appointed citizen group that got together that looked at growth management challenges really through the lens of climate and really with a focus on thinking about quality of life. That report is put in place. We're still kind of on this mountainscape and really set forth the Vision 2050 project, which is kind of multifaceted. Right now, we're in the phase where we are establishing the comprehensive plan update. Once we had that recommendation report in place, that was a great foundation to move forward, but necessitated code updates, further analysis, kind of further study. So we're now at the phase where we are updating our comprehensive plan, which will then set the groundwork for future code updates, both in land use and building codes. So that's kind of the picture and the scape of all what's included within this Vision 2050 effort. But specifically now, the comprehensive plan is what I want to just kind of give an update of what's in that and where we are. And I'll say that for the commissioners, we will be getting together tomorrow to do a deeper dive on this. So this is a little bit of a preview, but we'll be discussing more in detail about what's in the comprehensive plan. So kind of the broad scope of the plan is that there are 4 key content policy chapters: natural environment, built environment, community and economic health, and regional approach. Really throughout this process, we've been really grounded in the CJC recommendations, a data-informed approach, and then engaging the community through a variety of different mediums. One key tool that we've used is we've had a steering committee that's been called a work group, which are folks who are members of the growth committee, coupled with caucus members who have participated and been along with us for the ride for the last year and a half. And that has set the foundation for these goals by chapter, which then you see on the screen here. So natural environment, preserving, conserving, protecting rural character, natural environment of Pitkin County. The built environment, which is kind of the pairing of the natural and the built environment work together. So built environment, ensuring that all aspects from land use, transportation, housing, work together to reflect our community values. Again, those community values being that Vision 2050. Community and economic health, which is really about not just physical health, but also a healthy community. So recognizes and touches on aspects of quality of life in our local economy. And then the regional approach chapter and goal, which speaks to valley-wide and inter-municipality, inter-jurisdictional discussions as we move forward with some of the large challenges that we face as a valley at large. So that's just kind of an arch of the broad aspects of the different components of the plan. I want to, what I think is important and is a key as we've been doing this outreach, I'm going to bring this slide. There's a lot of text here, and I'll just walk through this slowly. But I think it's important to recognize that the policy direction that's in the plan, much of this is carried forward from our current and long-standing held policies, and then added to, again, through this process that we've gone through with the growth committee, with our steering group, working with the broader community throughout the last year and a half. So this is a few highlights of aspects that are in the plan, both carried forward and then new policies. So protecting water resources and moving that forward to increase water adequacy requirements, water conservation, kind of across all sectors. Environmental stewardship, which has been present within our policies to date, and adding performance standards and development standards to align with our climate action goals. Additionally, incentives for small homes, which touches on a variety of our goals, and it was a big direction coming out of the CJC recommendation. Managing growth, and also managing for intensity of residential development in rural areas across climate, transportation, economic sectors, limiting exemptions from growth management. Maintaining rural character is something that is part and parcel of planning within Pitkin County by focusing density toward urban areas where there's sufficient infrastructure. And that's a key aspect that leads into this next one, which is prioritizing community housing within the urban growth boundaries. That's something that is current within our land use code. And with the direction of the growth committee, allowing for community housing outside the UGBs, but under designated and specific limited criteria where infrastructure is sufficient. So that's a key place that we did a lot of community conversations, have received feedback on, and have narrowed that criteria to make sure that that's specific around what that sufficiency of infrastructure. Transferable development rights as a tool for rural preservation, but also addressing the impacts to TDR receiving sites. Continuing to bring forward preserving wildlife and habitat while also considering migration movement corridors, which has become a key discussion as of late. Preserving agricultural lands and also provisions to support agricultural producers in addition to local food. So that's something that's come out of this process. Public lands protections, in addition to reaffirm commitment to keep federal lands in federal ownership. Support for multimodal transportation, and then this plan moves that forward for a call to action for regional transportation planning. Hazard avoidance and mitigation, again, that's been really present within our policies, and bringing that forward to further integrate with our county's hazard mitigation plan. And then this support for local economy, as well as support for Pitkin County's workforce, again, regardless of residence in or outside of Pitkin County. This is a kind of a quick highlights. There's a lot clearly that's in the plan, but I wanted to pull forward for you all some of these key aspects that have been both conversations within our staff, we've been engaging with staff both of the city of Aspen as well as other municipalities. So this is some highlights just to kind of note that's within this policy document. A full plan is posted as of 1/29 for public comment. We had a plan, so this is, again, this process has been going on for the last year and a half, 2 years, specifically on the comprehensive plan. The version that's dated 1/29 is posted for public comment. The website is on our Pitkin County Vision 2050. There's a QR code. Public comments can be sent to Vision 2050. We've received a lot of great comments already. And then we're queued up for public hearings with the Planning Commission in March. The state statute, the way that we will move this forward is that Planning Commission, who's been working with us along the way, makes and adopts the plan, and then it goes to the BOCC for approval, which will happen following that adoption. And from here, we'll move into the code updates to further implement, again, the policies that are in this policy document.
Thank you for that.
So
You've
that's
been doing a lot of work.
Happy to answer, yeah.
Are there any questions or comments from either board? John?
I just want to say I was really impressed with the plan. You can tell it was very thoughtfully done. Thanks.
Thank you.
The only thing I would add, and it's just for future consideration by both boards, is it's been a while since we've updated the Aspen Area Community Plan. I understand they're pretty major undertakings, and it's certainly not something I'm suggesting for our board or yours in 2026. But I think we need to start laying the groundwork for an ability and perhaps a different way of doing it than has been in the past. I've been through several community plan updates myself, and I think we can look to some modern tools and maybe use some AI modeling of our communities and what we know, feed the data in, how many undeveloped lots are left, how many projects are ongoing, what we want to see. And I'm not sure there's a lot of changes that need to happen, but it's getting to be a little aged as a plan between our two bodies. So that's
I
just.
would definitely support it in 2027.
Thank you, Patty. I think we'll see a little bit of new blood and dealing with those issues then.
And I'll watch from home on the couch,
Yeah, throw popcorn at the TV
or not.
or not. Okay, well, thank you very much then for the presentation, and we'll move on to a city presentation with the entrance to Aspen.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, Hannah.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you, Hannah Horn.
Great job.
Okay, got all the green lights on?
I think so.
Very good.
Good evening, City Council and Commissioners. I'm Tyler Kristoff, Deputy City Manager. I'm also here with Tika Carlson, our Assistant City Manager, and
And I'm Lynn Rumbaugh, the Transportation Director for the city, and I will kick off our discussion with probably a bit of a review for most of you of the purpose of a reevaluation, which you see on the slide here in front of you. The purpose of a reevaluation is it is a formal step in the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, process. NEPA requires that transportation projects consider environmental, social, and economic impacts. The 1998 Aspen project completed a NEPA process and ultimately led to the record of decision and the preferred alternative. Through the current reevaluation, we will confirm whether the preferred alternative is still valid for decision-making. Go to the next slide, please. Thank you. It's also important to note what a reevaluation is not. It is not a new EIS or environmental impact process, and it does not include a review of new alternatives. Rather, a reevaluation will build on the current record of decision and focus on screening any modifications that are still within that preferred alternative framework.
Go through the last two bullets on that one, though, too.
The last two under is not,
Yeah,
so not a supplemental environmental impact statement and not a repeal of the entrance to Aspen plan.
but the reevaluation, should it not be satisfactory to the prior goals, could lead to a
Correct.
supplemental.
Correct.
That's all I kind of wanted to point out. Thank you.
Sure. An important part of a reevaluation is revisiting the purpose and need of a project. The purpose of the 1990s Entrance to Aspen project was to improve transportation and safety between the airport and Aspen while minimizing adverse environmental impacts. And this purpose remains the same today. Project needs, as you see on your slide, are system relationships, traffic characteristics, safety, and economic conditions. And studies of current conditions as they relate to these project needs are underway at this time. These studies will inform any modifications to the preferred alternative.
so since the existing preferred alternative is really the foundation for our reevaluation, we wanted to provide a refresher on how the preferred alternative came to be. So the 1998 project that found that the preferred alternative best met the project's 10 stated objectives. And these stated objectives were things like community-based planning, transportation capacity, safety, environmentally sound alternatives, community acceptability, financial limitations, clean air requirements, emergency access, livable communities, and phasing. 43 different transportation alternatives were analyzed before selecting the current preferred alternative. These included all different things like lane configurations, tunnel, cut and cover, at grade, different transit mode options. And to screen these alternatives, the project utilized 3 levels of screening. The first being a reality check, ruling out things that were unrealistic. The second level being a fatal flaw analysis, looking at options that didn't meet the project's goals. And then the third was a comparison screening based on costs, safety, environmental impacts, and community support. Ultimately, the best options were combined to create the current preferred alternative. The current preferred alternative includes some of the following features: a realignment of State Highway 82 across the Merrill and Thomas open space, constructing a new Castle Creek Bridge, adding 2 general purpose lanes and 2 dedicated bus lanes as an interim phase before a potential light rail, and building a short cut and cover tunnel through open space to provide connections for both wildlife and recreationalists. So moving on to the preferred alternative modifications, we wanted to give a high-level preview of some of the modifications to the preferred alternative that the project team is currently exploring. All the modifications are moving through multiple levels of screening to ensure that they stay true to the existing record of decision and ultimately advance the objectives and current needs. We're currently considering things like a roundabout reconfiguration.
When you say considering, you mean the engineers are looking at these potentials?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Not like we, the council, are considering them right now.
Correct. So
Thank you.
yes, we're very much in a exploration phase with our design team. So things that are being considered are things like a roundabout reconfiguration, potentially looking at expanding the diameter or adding slip lanes so certain vehicles can avoid entering the main roundabout if they're not planning on making a turning movement. We're looking at other things like enhanced trail connectivity, utilizing pedestrian underpasses, our cut and cover tunnel, existing multimodal, expanding existing multimodal trail networks, realignment of Owl Creek and Harmony Road to eliminate an additional signalized intersection. I think that was something that was discussed earlier. Things like bus slip lanes and potential for permanent high occupancy vehicle lanes.
So in terms of the project's governance, we have some different roles and responsibilities that we can highlight. The Colorado Department of Transportation is the lead agency. Final approval will rest with the Federal Highway Administration, and the city is coordinating the process and doing the engagement pieces. So there are two primary groups meeting on the entrance to Aspen. The first is the project management team, which is really sort of more technically and regulatory focused. And the project leadership team is quite representative of the community and has a regional and, again, sort of a community focus. This slide here basically shows the membership of the two different groups that meet monthly on the entrance. Again, the project management team is the more technically focused group. It has the City of Aspen, CDOT, Federal Highways Administration, and Jacobs. And the project leadership team is quite reflective of the community. It has the Aspen Chamber of Commerce, Aspen Fire, Ski Company, Police Department, Aspen School District, Aspen Valley Health, the city, highways, Garfield County, Jacobs, Pitkin County Sheriff, RAFTA, and the towns of Basalt, Carbondale, and Snowmass Village.
Thank you.
So now we're entering a public engagement phase for this project, and there'll be a website that will be socialized soon. It's nearly finalized, and the website will cover an overview of the project, the history and some context. It'll break down the process into different steps, and there will be an FAQ section. The public will also be able to sign up for updates on the website, and then there will be information about the public engagement meetings and opportunities. There will be a meeting in mid-March on the entrance to Aspen, and the purpose of that meeting is really to share an update on the process, the current status, share modifications to the preferred alternative, in more detail than Tyler just mentioned, and to gain input from the community on those modifications to the preferred alternative. And the format for that public meeting will be open house and then presentations. So time to get questions answered and then presentations. And then just a quick sort of overview of the timeline and where we are now. There's technical analyses underway. Jacobs is working closely with the Colorado Department of Transportation's environmental resource specialists. So this is their noise experts, their air quality, water analysts. And there's also traffic modeling that's underway to sort of understand the different impacts of modifications to the preferred alternative, and also modeling that factors in growth assumptions about the region. We're also continuing to refine elements of the preferred alternative. Coordination is ongoing with all of the different stakeholders. And as mentioned, we're moving into a public engagement phase. And then the next step after that will be assessing environmental and community impacts, and then in identifying mitigation efforts. And then just a note on some of the timeline and context pieces is there was the record-long federal government shutdown, which had impacts on our schedule. And we're just being very mindful to allow our partners to have time to review materials before we meet. So just 2 notes on that.
And there was the firing of a lot of federal workers.
And the reduction in force. So yes, that also is partly why we're allowing the staff, particularly at federal highways, to have extra time with things.
And council and commissioners, we bring that up to kind of manage expectations. We had originally hoped for around a 12 to 18-month project. We're still hoping that our key partners are going to be able to finish in around that time, but I think we want to be realistic about the time it takes to work with our federal government, especially with a reduction in force. They've been a great partner, but there are realities to that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
So just to finish up with some key takeaways for both elected boards, the reevaluation is in full swing, and we're staying true as we can to the existing record of decision. Traffic modeling, growth assumptions, environmental analyses are underway, and all of these things are really key elements to inform our design modifications. Public engagement efforts are our key next step with the website and public meetings scheduled for March, as Tika mentioned. We're really looking forward to engaging the public, and that's a key project objective for the project is community acceptability, and so that's one of the ways that helps us weigh in on that project objective. So that's what we had from staff tonight, and we're here to answer any questions or take any comments.
Thank you.
This is kind of really wide, and is there anything, if you have a crystal ball, if there's anything being proposed with the lumberyard or possibly the multimodal at the airport or with the Coalition for 21st Century Transportation that might impact the record of decision and need it to be addressed in some way, such as an amendment to the ROD or a reopening because the change was significant enough? I mean, that's kind of a who knows right now.
Sure. Yeah, that's a difficult question to answer. I think there have been things that have been proposed that our state officials and federal officials would indicate would open it up to a larger process. Things like adding toll lanes, for example, are outside of the 43 elements that were considered in the original 1998 record of decision, and would put us outside a reevaluation process. I don't think that there's anything in the current reevaluation process that excludes future improvements like that, or the future improvements proposed at the airport, et cetera. So I don't think those are mutually exclusive.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, 1 second. I think it's a little bit like what you're doing to work on Smith Hill Road and changing that aspect of Highway 82 without having to reopen a record of decision from basalt to buttermilk. And I think that there would be opportunities to look at CDOT and with CDOT for changes that might happen, say, at the Airport Business Center that are outside of the scope of this record of decision. But it would be within the county's purview, and it would be an addition or amendment to an older record of decision, the basalt to buttermilk section. Francie, I saw your hand. Now come over and look at this side.
Presentation. My question is possibly unanswerable, but do you have any kind of budget ideas about, assuming we went with the record of decision sort of as it is now and maybe enhancing the roundabout? Do we have any idea what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think really very preliminary budget estimates for something like that, going pretty close to what has been proposed since '98, would be in the $300 to $400 million range, I suspect. That's with a cut and cover tunnel, a new bridge, roundabout improvements, stuff like that. Now, it really depends on how much construction escalation happens, what other design elements are in there, other things that we get into that are unforeseen. So please take that number with a grain of salt.
And where would the money be coming from?
That's a great question. So we've spoken with our partners at CDOT and the Federal Highways Administration. This is obviously infrastructure that is owned and operated by those entities. And so we would look pretty heavily at those partners to come up with the majority of the funding. I think they would probably look back at us for some local support, especially in some of the infrastructure we own and manage. But you know, I think they understand that that they have obligations in this project. And I think the reevaluation has allowed us to be more in control of our own destiny than if this process was controlled from outside the community.
So we're going to be in multi-billion-dollar projects over the next 10, 20 years.
With a lot of money coming from the feds, and that's going to be a miracle.
Yeah. Well, we'll go on to that. Is there questions or comments on the side? Bill?
I was reading about the boring company recently, and I was wondering if anyone has any history of any elements of tunnels have ever been studied related to the Entrance to Aspen project.
Yeah, so in my previous life as a civil engineer, I've been involved in tunnel projects. The technology that the boring company uses specifically has not been utilized in a geotechnical environment like Aspen has. I'm not saying that it couldn't be successful here. It's just the glacial till, cobbles and boulders are a pretty challenging environment for a boring operation of that scale. And I think other considerations with the cut and cover are really CDOT's long-term ability to maintain that with their limited budget resources too. So I think the feedback we've gotten from our state and federal partners is that they want to minimize the exotic infrastructure that they might have to take on in the future. So we're trying to balance those things with them.
Okay, but thank you for that. That's interesting. In all the different things that were studied to come up with the EIS, the first go-round, did any of them contemplate any of those scenarios or things contemplate tunneling?
I don't know specifically in the 43. I'd have to look back at that to give you an accurate answer. I doubt, and I guess I'm not sure the scale you're talking about, but yeah, I'd need to get back to you on that.
Yeah, I don't believe so, Bill, having been there during that time period. I have seen some citizen comments that we should put it right down Hallam Street and have an underground tunnel straight into town. The challenge is always when you get to the aesthetics of the community. And one of the older campaigns against any sort of use of the Meralt or that entrance was showing how horrible the cut and cover tunnel would be to our guests in our atmosphere. And so a larger and longer tunnel from somewhere, I'm not sure. Similar to overpasses, you know, this is part of the Airport Business Center discussion. Should there be overpasses that, again, a full-size highway vehicle can use? And would that be aesthetically acceptable to our community? It's not a very rural feature. It'd be very urbanizing. But it has been thrown around before. I was just reading about some new safety concerns coming up with the boring tunnel projects. So, you know, there's always 50-50.
Thanks.
Other comments or questions? Yeah, Christine?
One comment, and I assume this is the case, but we just told or suggested that staff from the county and the city talk about the lumberyard and the airport. Hopefully, it's the same representative from the city that will be in those meetings that's working on the reevaluation.
I think there's a lot of overlap
Okay,
there
great.
for sure in both organizations. So, yeah.
Okay. Greg?
Just briefly, Rachel brought this up earlier, and I thought it merits a discussion at another time, at least, to look into. What we're seeing with AI are the initiatives to create what are called digital twins.
Yeah.
And we've probably brought it up.
I've
Perhaps
talked
you
to my
already
staff
know.
about that.
Okay. I was going to send you some info I found on it, and I'll just leave it at that. But maybe there are ways for modeling comprehensive plans, transit mobility, all these complex issues we have. You know, the tools exist, and it's time to contemplate using them. We don't have to be on the bleeding edge.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time to look into it.
I
Thanks.
agree with you, Greg. I've been talking to my staff and actually investigating a couple companies to see how and what they're really capable of. I'll put out the old maxim that all models are good and all models are wrong. You know, they help you a little bit, but you've got to double check them throughout for reality-based. But I'd love to see something like that as a basis for the community plan and other aspects of our governance.
Great, thanks.
And I'll just respond to that really quickly. Jacobs, our consultant team, has AI modeling built into their existing contract right now, so that is part of our plan. And then we need to also do more traditional modeling to meet state and federal standards as well. So we'll do a pretty robust modeling effort for this project. So.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we will have two other items after this, and again, we'll hope to end right at 6 o'clock to follow other chairs who've done really well with that. But I am going to take a minute while we're on transportation to talk about something that I had learned about more thoroughly in Denver at the Voices of Rural Colorado meeting. There was a presentation by a new campaign group that's starting up called Restore Our Roads Colorado. And, you know, these things always mush around a little bit before they set a final ballot title, and they are out gathering signatures now, and they've gotten the final language to this proposal. It essentially says that all sales tax that is generated to the state general fund by automotive sales, tires, windshield wipers, gas, oil, anything car-related, antifreeze, will be pulled out of the state general fund and put into a roads-only HUTF for CDOT to use. So roads only, not fund any future mass transit of any function whatsoever. But what you need to realize is that this is a robs Peter to pay Paul proposal. It's not about any new money, and it's not asking to debruce the state sales tax, which would allow perhaps more money to flow into it. So I was able to ask the question, well, where would these cuts come from in the state general fund? And it's like, would it be K through 12 schools? Would it be childcare? Would it be the courts and judicial system? Would it be funding for DOLA? Would it be the Medicaid support that's keeping our rural hospitals going when a third of their patients are all Medicaid patients? And the answer was, well, we'll let the state legislature figure that out if it passes. And so I'm sitting here thinking, how much new City of Aspen sales tax we just gave the school district to deal with the cuts that they've already been suffering from. And making up a $300+ million deficit is a pretty serious set of cuts. And this year's legislative session will mostly be focusing on how to cut another $1 billion+ out of the state budget. And the state will be getting its last economic forecast for the legislature in March. But coming from a ski community and hearing from other ski communities about how the bad snow has affected business, it's not going to be a good financial report. Our farmers are suffering, everyone's suffering, and the lack of water is going to make it a little harder too. So I just want to make people aware of that. For me, it's a do not sign this. We all would like more transportation money. I have supported every transportation funding initiative in the past 30 years for CDOT that didn't just try to take it out of public schools or didn't just try to take it out of all these other critical agencies that we need. And so I don't know what the cuts will already be, but the state is taking an axe to what remains of a bare bones budget. Last year, they drained every reserve they had to balance the budget. DOLA came in with no money to hand out to anybody this year for their rural efforts. So just to us be aware of that, that will probably be on the November ballot. Interestingly, I talked to the head of the Colorado Motor Carriers Association for all the trucking industries, and they said, we've been asked for money, but we're not signing on because we are aware that it would be pitting roads against students, roads against every other service the state offers. So that's quite a concern. And of course, it does not support any multimodals. I have to dig further to see if it affects, say, bus tank or some of these other existing programs in CDOT. So thanks for giving me a moment to point that one out. It's scary and problematic. Thank you. So and nobody else had any questions for this team? Okay, thank you very much. The last two items are discussion of a potential housing summit with the City Council and BOCC and APSHA, and then a roundtable from all of us about future joint meeting topics. And I will take just a moment as I kind of introduce the idea. I think we all got an email from Kelly, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, with all her preparations to move on to a new chapter. But she did express support for moving something forward. I think that our APSHA board has really been doing a great job under the directorship of, what am I thinking, Matthew Gilliam, and the increased resources the county's able to put into housing with the mill levy passage and to that. But there still are a lot of kind of fundamental questions that have grown up over the course of a 50-year project, a 50-year program, that at some level I think it's up to the elected officials to try to tackle, as opposed to just the more regulatory tools that just APSHA has. I think it'd be worth understanding each other's projects. I certainly would invite the school district to participate. I think they'd like to if we go forward, and Snowmass Village as well, because the county has other places to expend its money. But this would not be how much housing do we need in the region and what are the regional efforts. We've had regional housing meetings before, but there are a number of policies that I think the APSHA board and others have faced at different times, particularly the 3% appreciation cap and people trying to make repairs and yet paying inflated prices for those. What is the appropriate return on your investment from your APSHA unit, and how do you keep it up? I don't know if your board has been getting emails or letters of people who currently reside in APSHA or are considering buying or not buying APSHA, wanting to answer the question of, if they change the regulations after I've been paying 30 years on this mortgage, can they force me to move at 68 if I retire? And does our Aspen Area Community Plan, which does support a community from infants to seniors, still support, or is the pressure for moving people along rather than maybe the cycles we're starting to see with a lot of our friends passing away can take its own effect? But there's a lot of those policy questions that I think we should tackle as the elected boards, as opposed to just kind of leave them lingering with people out there. I think that might be one of the real reasons there hasn't been a lot of uptake on the right sizing and downsizing program, is because you'd be giving up the security of your home to a new lease that says at any time these regulations can change what you believe are your bundle of rights that you've bought with your home. So there's probably a lot of other topics we and our staff would be able to come up with to make it more of a 1 day or less, half a day, 3/4 of a day. But I think it's really important that we focus on this program. And I'm just asking if the board, BOCC, is still supportive of that, and we can get our combined staffs working on a date and an agenda. I'll leave it at that. Francie?
Well, I would ask, what do we think came out of our last housing summit that we had at Aspen Institute?
Well, I think the county asking a mill levy and having it pass is one of the very good successes of that the county would have its own resources. It came out of that meeting that the county didn't have the same resources that the city had, and that was part of why the underfunding of the APSHA office and its capabilities was, because we always kept keeping it low. That was pretty significant. I'd have to think about that question a little bit more and read back to the notes. I think we've all been doing things like trying to manage growth of short-term rentals that started driving people out. So I think a lot of things have happened that may or may not have flown just from that. But I wasn't helping set the agenda then. And I think we want to get down to very specific topics and issues with our guidelines. I think, again, APSHA and its board, they've modified the code in a number of ways. I was on it for a little while following that retreat with a whole fine schedule, a fine schedule for enforcement as opposed to limited options, the use of a hearing officer to be able to free the board from most of those core decisions. I would leave this to our APSHA representatives from both boards to talk about if they thought they could find value in it and add the questions and the topics to make sure there's real value in it for our time.
I mean, I enjoy spending time with the council. I just think about that other meeting and I went like, was it Lone Pine that came and talked about wanting to do a development? Remember the representative, was that Lone?
They wanted to add on and remodel, et cetera. You'd better utilize their space.
So
Well, they haven't come to us yet, but I know what you're talking about.
yeah, so anyway, I thought they came to that joint meeting that we had, but
I don't recall that part.
yeah. Well,
Little bit
anyway,
more.
yes, I'm in support of it. I think we need to talk about it, but I don't want to leave out a discussion about the number of units. We don't have to see the whole study of housing in the valley again.
No, that's why I'm saying this would be focused on our relationship, our resources. As I said, I know, Snowmass is hoping there's some support from the county on its new revenues and Basalt, because they're within your jurisdictions, and it's good. It's good that that's happening. Greg?
I think just from a 30,000-foot view, and I'm looking around the table to see what people think, we've been in housing longer than just about anybody. And I keep telling people, we've made the mistakes that haven't even occurred to them yet.
Right.
And we've corrected them, and we've adjusted and fixed. And it's a maturing system. But it's its entire own ecosystem within another economy. And if we're going to have a conversation about this, which I think is a good idea, I'd like to be a little bit more comprehensive, perhaps, in the look at it to see what's missing from this ecosystem that makes it impossible for people to leave if they want to, or make it just, maybe it's financially impossible. Maybe they want to leave, but they can't. I think there might be opportunity for an economist and a sociologist and some others to get involved, because what we're trying to do is create an alternative universe to the free market. And it works, but in some cases it traps people.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be great if we came up with ways that people could invest locally while being in housing without growing the community in some speculative way, and still, be able to retire someday, all that sort of thing.
Perfect world stuff.
Perfect world stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just wondering what's missing from the soup that we've
Well,
been working on
that's
for so long.
exactly why I'd like to start conversations like this, Greg. And, it's interesting, you talk to some of the planning directors and staff or council members down Valley, they'll tell you, we're not interested in housing your problem. You guys need the workers. You've never housed them. Don't come down here thinking you're going to do deed-restricted housing for Aspen-only workers. You want to build something for us? Yeah, we'd love to. We saw the housing report about how many more units Garfield County needs just for its own workforce and its businesses. So I think we need to get realistic about where we're going to go with housing and the type of questions you're raising. I really agree with that. But I don't think it's another summit about the valley. I think we need to look internally first before perhaps we can go further out. John?
Yeah, I want to thank Greg for bringing that up. I talked to other communities about our housing program a lot because we are looked up to around the state. And as you pointed out, one of the issues that our program is facing is that it's one of the oldest, and so we are having problems that nobody else has had because they're not at the same age housing program that we have. I got to say, as a member of APSHA for the last 2+ years, we have talked a lot about our housing stock being kind of jammed up at one end with a lot of older people, retirees. And it comes up over and over again, how can we get them out? We've asked them, and in my opinion, the vast majority of people don't really want to leave. This is where they raise their family. This is where their friends live. This is their life. This is what they know. So I think, I don't don't really feel like anybody feels trapped. I mean, I'm sure there are some exceptions, but again, we are working on this. APSHA is constantly. This is a subject we talk about every meeting.
For 5 years.
Yeah, so I think that those are both sides of the same coin, and we don't want to get into deep philosophical discussions here. I do know people who feel trapped, that what they sell would never allow them to move anywhere else in Colorado.
Yeah,
So there is that, and I think you'd want to do some real means testing, and we're not going to help people move out of the North 40 RO units, you know, and things like this. On the other hand, why are people not interested in downsizing? People have suggested, should we build a move-to place that's a little better? Or others have said, well, why are we building for bedrooms for children if we're really just interested in workforce? And we, you know, we're going to be a rental-only society in the future here in Aspen. What is the outcome of a rental-only housing program in terms of stability in a community? So there's a lot to discuss, and I think we should set aside the time to really do that. People are pointing to this side of the table. Did somebody have a comment over here? I haven't captured yet.
Waving, I wanted to respond quickly.
Oh,
I'll let
okay.
Greg go, and then I
Only
have
that-
something different.
Okay, Greg and
I wanted
Patty.
anybody to infer that I was making an inference there. I guess the inference I was making was we were naive when we started it, and people starting housing programs even today are naive because they just simply haven't had the experience. Michael Kinsley's famous quote when they started doing housing so long ago was, it never occurred to us people would grow old. You know, we never thought anyone would grow old here. It's just, you know, a simple thing like that. Maybe he said it in jest, but
Yeah.
there's some truth to it. But I'm also thinking we could think about, you know, what investment mechanisms are available to people in housing. Could there be a credit union? Could there be a, you know?
I know
so-
Sam has always talked about if a portion of people's rent could be set aside in a savings account for them, so they could move up the ladder or something like that.
Right. Thank you. That's really what I was getting at.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that clarification, Sam.
Did you want to tag on him? Mine's a little different.
Okay, I'll tag on to him.
That's fine.
No, and just the housing summit, it's just, I was thinking about efficiency when it came to this and how much you've really thought about it and just, but I think it does stem from you more than anyone else as far as like the ideas that you've thought of. And for that reason, it reminds me of something we did on the previous council with Ward and John, where they would come up with APSHA policy questions and propose them to the council, and we would discuss them, and majority would sort of win, and they'd bring it back to the APSHA table. So I was just thinking for this, especially since you're more or less the brainchild of it, if all these policy questions you could almost get into like a document, and we could have like a work session on it to talk about these as far as like what might go where, starting with a work session of APSHA policy questions, because I feel like that's what you're more or less getting at, and
I think
then,
there's more than that, but I was just trying to talk about the importance of answering these questions.
but it sounds like a lot of APSHA policy questions more than anything else, correct? Because I thought we're not talking about like
No,
studies
I
of,
think we could talk about what sort of projects we could help out each other on,
Well, then-
and what sort of other projects we're expecting in units coming forward. I know I use the APSHA policies as an example, but I think there's a lot more content.
well, then, even so, I guess for my sake and the way I like to operate is just if we could have a work session of all the things that you're thinking about, so we could discuss them as a council, to hopefully like refine the scope to something that would be most efficient, and then maybe send that scope over to the county so they can talk about it. And then when we do meet, it's already been discussed and it's already been refined, and all the things that you want to discuss have already been discussed on the individual boards. My chief concern here is just like quality over quantity. I don't actually think we need to spend like a whole day at the Aspen Meadows like we did a different time. I do think we could do this in a joint session if a lot of work is done before in a very efficient, refined manner. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh, I appreciate that. I think it's good to have a dialogue among ourselves, and I don't want it to become something that, well, the county said this and the city said that, and now we need to reconcile it, as opposed to us starting the discussion together, an agreement. I like a lot of what you're saying, but I wouldn't want it to be like, well, the city has decided it's going to fix these policies this way, and the county's decided it's going to fix these policies this way. But if we were refining the agenda and what we would like to tackle in the course of that meeting and what sort of resources we would need to discuss it, because again, I think the type of participants we're going to see interested as bystanders to this process is the Aspen School District. They've already asked if they would be able to be invited to that, and Snowmass Village, and the other elements of what the county needs to deal with and is within their purview. So I think there might be some middle ground, but if you're saying you no longer want to do a housing retreat, you just want to do work sessions among our own board.
Well, I just wanted to start there because, to be honest with you, having worked there, I don't know what the school district and other entities are going to bring to this right now without knowing, like on paper, and be able to digest the policy and discussion that you've given examples of. That's all. I'm just saying, like, I don't have the vision that you have right now because of it.
That's why I ran for mayor.
No, I know.
ran for mayor saying we need a housing summit in this community because this program is 50 years old, and we're just tying shoelaces around the edges of some problems. And it's up to the electeds to really get into a point of dealing with them. And I realize the time commitment for some people on council is hard, is challenging. I've been on a board where I take a retreat on a Saturday because no one could take it Monday through Friday. And I think that's what we owe our constituents in terms of the time when we're at the table.
No, this is not coming from a place of laziness. It's coming from a place of efficiency.
Yeah.
I'm saying that you actually, it's your brainchild. You did run on this. It's like, how do we do it in an efficient way? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying no.
I think Pete and our staff also want us to do it in the most efficient way possible. We were just reaffirming with the county that they'd like to do this today because there's been some question. And I don't know if that's accurate, and our staff should even be working on a housing retreat or summit one day if those questions still exist.
I'm hearing two different ideas, and one is APSHA policy, which is pretty in the minutia, and then something much larger on strategy that involves the school district and SKICO and some of the private developers working on housing credits, higher level strategy, and I think that's what you're suggesting with the housing summit. I would be supportive of both of these, and in our council talking about some of the policy suggestions that we can make to APSHA, and a bigger picture conversation about where we're at with housing in the Upper Valley. It is worth revisiting and getting everyone in the same room with a very detailed agenda to talk about where we're at.
Yeah, and if I didn't explain it as well, if I was focusing on smaller things, I would apologize to everyone here. But I truly do not believe that our community, our business community, has woken up to what's going to happen when all of our current workforce in free market housing in the Mid-Valley retire. Our workforce is disappearing and aging out just like we are, and nobody is buying middle management homes in Basalt or Carbondale or Missouri Heights anymore. So that housing study doesn't account for the switchover of what had been worker housing to now second homes and not going to house the people.
Yeah, and let me be clear.
So I just wanted to get to the bigger picture stuff.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that, like Francie brought it up too, is like we've done a housing summit with the county, and I don't necessarily feel like it was the most efficient or productive thing we had done. So I just worry about efficiency. I'm not anti-housing summit. I support you, Rachel. I just want it to be done in a way that actually leads to goals that you're aiming to achieve, not just
I
lost
agree with
in
efficiency as well.
Lost in thought.
Lost in thought. So I'm sorry if I did not explain it as well. I'm hoping that there'd be a lot of efficiency created by our staffs working together on topics and the APSHA board. I mean, this is really about involving the APSHA board. I see Bill's hand, and then you, Jeff? Oh, Patty, please.
I'm going to interrupt here because I've been very patient over here. I think we kind of briefly talked about this. There are major housing projects going on now, Mid-Valley, Carbondale, Glenwood, and beyond. And a lot of those are not deed restricted. They're calling them affordable housing. So where are we losing that as part of our discussion? Because those generate employment in those communities, and we lose a lot of those employees from up here to down there because of the commute issues. So I think we would be limiting our ability to focus and to come up with solutions if we're not bringing in those other jurisdictions. Not just Basalt, but Carbondale, Glenwood Springs at least. I don't know if you could get Garfield County at the table. Eagle would, probably be more receptive. But I think that's an important part. What?
They don't believe in supporting housing. Tom was very clear about that.
Glenwood, Eagle?
Garfield.
Oh, yeah, Garfield, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, Tom Boyd? So anyway, I think that would be an important part of our discussion. And I think we need to not focus on the policies with APSHA. We need to focus on the goals, where we're trying to go, not going back and looking at numbers, how many units here and there, but what are we really trying to do? Because now we've kind of lost our way.
Thank you. Jeff,
Either way, go ahead.
either way?
Thanks,
Okay.
Bill.
So I'm going to divide my comments into 3 areas: funding, site analysis, and impact. I'm in favor of a housing summit. I'm concerned with the current state legislative path, which is there's at least 2 or 3 bills that are prescient. One is the Home Act, which is basically preempting local control and putting in place 55-foot-tall 3-story buildings. As a home rule county, I'd like to look at ways we can get around that potential legislation. I'll throw that out there. Press is here. So preemption's on my list. There's also a bill which is around short-term rentals versus a vacancy tax, vacant home tax, which may impact both Pitkin and the city of Aspen. It will fly in the face of our current short-term rental regulation. So that's concern number 2. The third one, obviously, I'd like to bring back a RET F, and we'll discuss
Yeah,
that.
I knew you'd pull that one out for me.
We'll discuss that in 2027 when there's a new administration. Other big topics, so that's mostly funding and state preemption. Other big topics would include annexation versus UGB. Really, the question is, how do we grow? And I think it's a question both at Eagle County as well as Pitkin County, with areas like the town of Assault as well as the city of Aspen. And then I've never seen a parcel layer assessment of what's available in terms of if we're 84% federal lands, what's really left in terms of build out? And so rather than the theoretical, are there 10 sites that are owned by Aspen Skiing Company or someone else who would be that friendly partner? And so as we went forward with the housing tax, there were 2 things we said. We would enter into partnerships, which really just looks like we're entering a 1-for-1. We give $7 million and we get 7 units. I still have yet to see how the county acts in terms of multiplier. I still have yet to see leverage or, pick a financial term that shows that we're really making a difference. Because right now, all we have is a small housing tax. I just got my bill, it's wonderful. But I haven't seen how the county grows up and really makes an impact outside of roughly $7 million and then just plays along the draw or the rugby field. So, yes, I would support a
Those are some great
summit.
topics.
Thank you.
And we should plan it for 2027.
And one more thing, as someone who's now, I guess, part of the aging demographic, I wish we would change the narrative in the room. There's a couple things coming out of the SDO, the State Demographer's Office.
Going out on what?
The State Demographer's Office. Sorry, I used the acronym, then I defined it. I'm getting better. That Pitkin County is not growing over the next, and Hannah Hunt's not here. Pitkin County is not growing, right? We're roughly 16,000 people. We'll be roughly 16,000 people in 2050. The 2 areas in our valley that are growing are Eagle at 25% and Garfield at 25%. So to me, is there a way to reframe the conversation where we love these aging in place people because they're spending money here? So can we look at them as economic drivers or, people that we want to throw out of housing and substitute with a 22-year-old who has no dispensable income? So thanks for letting me carry on.
Thank you. Interesting. Bill?
There are a lot of topics being discussed here, and to wrap this into one summit, I think, is counterproductive. I'd like to suggest that we try to narrow this down into maybe 4 different buckets and break this apart, because I think trying to do this all at once under one umbrella is not going to accomplish what you hope. I'm generally supportive of spending some time on it in digestible chunks with very targeted sort of topics and goals. I don't want to spend any time talking about collaborating on creating new housing personally. I don't know if others want to do that, but I think my personal interest is focused on how do we sort of optimize what we have, how do we make sure that what we have is sustainable into the future, which at this point in time, it is not, in my opinion. So that's where I would like to see the focus, but I really suggest that we break this apart and do it once every 4 months or 6 months or something like that, so that it's productive and people really can focus on it and think about it and digest it. And maybe one is on, optimizing the existing, maybe another one is on sort of state policy and taxation, and maybe another one's on this. But I just don't see a way that we come out of this trying to throw everything at the wall with any sort of tangible action.
I agree. This is not a throw everything at the wall effort. It's something to really dive in deep on a few topics that are of most importance, and that's kind of similar to Sam's suggestion that we all compile what those are and think about what we most would like to discuss and not the minutia or anything like that. Let me see, is there a head nod to go forward or not? I mean, I know we just did the larger regional, including Glenwood and Carbondale and Basalt, that Gail Schwartz and Habitat for Humanity put on at the Met.
I'm talking one with us.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to focus really on what we as the upper government can do, because when we start talking to the Down Valley communities, a big question becomes, well, what sort of affordable housing mitigation are you requiring from your new commercial developments? And there may be 10% or less. And, it gets to be a challenge when we're very aggressive about affordable housing from new development and other communities are not. And they actually want the economic development as much as the housing. And so, it has become problematic across the board. But do we want our staffs to continue to work and refine from what they've heard from all of us here?
Yes.
Only if it's digestible and broken apart. If it's a whole-day housing summit with extremely broad topics, I'm not coming.
Okay, thank you. Now, an even better subject item here is future joint meeting topics for discussion. We do these meetings quarterly. I think it's very important that the county and the city have better relations than most counties have with their cities, and we appreciate your being here, and our next meeting will be in your home court.
Just before you go on,
Yeah.
do we have an EOTC coming up before we adjourn? I'd like to know if anybody knows whether we do or not.
I don't have a date in front of me for that, so I can't tell you. I think April 23rd?
April is would be the next regular meeting. I think there's still an idea of having that retreat that I believe we had discussed. And I know that our staff has been looking at that with the intent of reaching out to the respective chairs of each board. So that should be coming, and I can take that back and see if we can get a date on that. But I would suspect at this point, it being February, it may be that our April timeframe turns into a retreat timeframe, just with what we have going on, also with your own retreat coming up and such. So
Okay.
more to come. Don't have an exact date today.
So we hold on to April 23rd? Did you say?
Tentative EOTC.
Tentative EOTC, that's good, because that's be before I leave for 10 days for vacation, and anything after that I won't make. Anyhow, topics for the next joint meeting of our board. I think that drought is going to be on the top of minds, and how we are all prepared for potentially lower water deliveries from municipal water providers.
What's the date on that you're thinking? June?
Our next quarterly meeting, I don't know that we have a date.
But it would be in June?
Yeah, they're roughly quarterly.
It's going to be snowing.
June 2nd.
I mean, I'm sure our staffs will be talking about, but drought and wildfire preparedness, the city is working with the fire district with some of their increased revenues for mitigation projects around the city. Those are the things that just became really obvious to me was where the water flow is going. And I think we will be meeting to discuss some of the Shoshone issues, because we are both parties of opposition to that. You have to file as an opposer just to be in the door or be in the room. It doesn't mean you oppose over the long
I'm
haul.
not sure how much we can discuss in public because we're both parties to a lawsuit.
No, I understand, and we all may be able to have a joint executive committee meeting, because I've seen our boards go into executive session together before. And so that might be a possibility if we need to discuss Shoshone water, which affects basically the flows in our Roaring Fork and our gold medal waters. And whatever settlement they make over there could have negative impacts to us over here. We just need to be in the case to make sure that doesn't happen. So those are two topics I had, was, wildfire, and I know there's been a lot of tabletop exercises, but you asked an Aspen resident where they're supposed to go to get picked up by a bus if there's an evacuation, and I can't tell them that. And we need to be able to tell them that. Now, it's not like to duplicate the presentation by the marshals and the safety officers and everyone we've seen before, but how prepared are we, and what are we going to do? Because this is going to be a very, very dry summer. Bill?
I'd be interested in talking about how we could find some efficiencies in collaborating with one another, especially in this world where we're talking, on one side, we're talking about how difficult it is to house people and hire people and employ people and retain people. And on the other hand, we're growing our headcounts, both of us, I believe, pretty significantly, certainly in the last 10 years.
The organizations?
The organizations. So, can we find efficiencies between each other, whether that's by outsourcing things together, whether it's by, leaning on one entity to do certain things versus the other, and vice versa. I think we have two good examples of collaboration, RAFTA and APSHA, but I don't think anyone's talked about that or thought about it in a long time. And once upon a time, the building departments were a joint entity and a joint effort, but we've really divided, and we're not a huge community, and there's lots of examples of communities where a county does something on behalf of municipalities within it and vice versa, and I think that's worth a new look.
That's an interesting topic to bring forward.
I like that, I support that.
Greg?
Yeah, if I could switch it, this is a lighter topic perhaps, but I think it's as important. June might almost be too late, but I know Rachel and I have spoken at the RAFTA board and elsewhere about bicycle safety, bicycles, commuters on e-bikes, velocity of bicycles on the Rio Grande Trail, the possibility of creating alternative bike routes on frontage roads, dedicated bike lanes, so the fast bikers can still ride fast and get where they're trying to go, and the Rio Grande Trail isn't disturbed. And I just want to keep that in people's minds, because spring will come and we're going to see more bikes, and the trend has been for more severe accidents, injury and death from bicycles. Not all just e-bikes, but just more people cycling, getting in wrecks.
I think that's a great topic.
And I've reached out to the school board and the sheriff, and RAFTA is definitely, and so.
We've asked RAFTA if they would be a convener of a task force of city and county folks and others on the safety issue, because.
Maybe we'll have a report in June. Maybe there'll be something to talk about in June that's been accomplished by then, who knows?
That is a public safety issue that's really growing. Patty?
And I don't know if this will be right by then, but our Healthy Community Fund is going to be up for reauthorization, so we should have closer to ballot language drafted by June. We will. So we might want to bring a little presentation on where we end up at the end of the day, because it's essential that we reauthorize that fund. So that might be that's a good discussion for us to have.
That's a really good point. I helped that last campaign with Nan, and I think the two co-chairs we had have passed away, with time. Yeah, that's an important one, and to find out where federal cuts to the various programs that the Healthy Community Fund currently supports
We'll have more
would be a better
I
assessment.
think that'd be a great topic.
Sam?
I brought up before the Child Development Bike Skills Park. I think it will be on county land if it ever does happen. I think it'd be a good discussion to see if we can find another spot.
See if we can find another spot. That's an interesting topic as well. Other topics that people think would be timely between the two boards?
Just one, because she's front and center in my mind, Marky Butler. just remembering her and her impact. I served with her on the Board of Health when she was our chair before I became chair. And Markey had such an impact on our community, and we'll be sending some more things to the paper from the Board of Health and elsewhere about her contributions, and just wanted to bring her name up and let it ring through the room here. Thanks.
She was very interested in creating some senior housing, and we had talked about that before, like, maybe you could put it all over the top of the rodeo lot out there, you know, it's a lot of flat land just used for cars, you know, things like that. Any other, Jeff?
Yeah, just dovetailing on Bill's comment. So we've already felt the brunt of the federal cuts. So we're looking at roughly $2 million in human service cuts. And so we've been back to our congressional delegation in terms of quantifying that. But by the same token, we're also going back and looking at what are the other IGAs we can put in place around, there's now state mandated potentially in 26 and 27 districting and shared services. So partnering with counties like Garfield. And so we continue to work across the valley as we face these cuts. So
We said in our letter, we have a letter drafted by our Human Services Department to Congressman Hurd. Have you guys seen it? Because
I don't think we've seen it.
make sure it was really well done with breakdown of what.
I'd love to have a copy of that as
I'm
I,
actually hand delivering it next week in DC.
yeah. Okay, John, anybody else have any, and certainly let your own manager know if you think of other things you'd like to see and then we'll let them kind of sort it through, what's ready, what they have the information we need, what's most timely for discussion in our next joint meeting.
Thanks, Rachel.
Okay, I think then we are adjourned.
So this is the shout.
Adjourned. Thank you, Grassroots TV, we appreciate your time.
Sitting on for a little bit.